Hello and welcome to PCI Webinars. Today's webinar, Making Training Stick with Andrew Sanderbeck. Andrew has been developing and conducting training seminars for libraries and library organizations for more than 10 years. He has presented web-based, online, and face-to-face sessions on management and leadership, customer service, and communication skills in the United States and numerous countries around the world. Coming to you now from the hills of North Carolina, it's Andrew Sanderbeck.
Thanks, Ann, and hi, everybody. So great to have you with us, and thank you for joining the program on Making Employee Training Stick. This program was a program that I co-presented at the most recent ALA conference in Chicago with Terry McGowan. He is the head of staff development at the King County Library System out in Washington State. And we got a really good response on this. I hope that you guys are going to get a lot out of the program as well. Could you just give me a yes or no over in the discussion area? Are you currently supervising, whether you want to call them staff members or employees, whether it's in your department, wherever that may fall? Are you in charge of someone, I guess, is the question that I'm trying to ask here. So are you in charge of others? Lots of yeses. Oh, student workers. Oh my gosh, Mary. We could have a whole good day on that. Okay, so pretty good mixes of yes and no's. Anita, let's see. Yes, okay. Training new hires. Okay, good. All right. Because this program is certainly designed for those who are supervising others, and there are tools here that we can use for ourselves as well. Where I want to take you in the next 55 minutes really looks at these four areas, why you need to be involved when it comes to making training stick for others. What you think about training really does matter, so we're going to look at that. And I want to look at what you can do to help make training stick for others. And then we're going to take you into this getting started with how we transfer training out of just learning and into behavior and finally results. And that is a longer process, but I certainly want to get you started today on that. Down in the downloads area in the bottom left, what we have down there is the bottom file, as Ann mentioned, is the PowerPoint. There are also 3 other files. 2 of them are handouts I'll be talking about. And then the one that starts with SUGG and then an E, that would be suggested resources. And we did quite a bit of research into this program, and there are a lot of sources that we have cited, not only in the PowerPoint here, but even more than that on that sheet. So please make sure that you do take a look at those different resources that we have available for you. I want to start off with why you need to be involved. And to me, when I look at a training situation and I look at, okay, well, who are the important stakeholders here? I look at really 3 different parties, and we're looking at, first of all, the supervisor of the employee that is sending that employee to training. We look at the trainer, so that would be the person doing the training, and then we have the trainee, the one that we are sending to the training. So Broad & Newton did some research, and this is from a book that we've got listed in our resources here, where they asked a wide range of people who were the most important. If you were to label this 1 through 9, whether it's you've got the before column, the during column, or the after column, who was the single most important person in the training being effective for the person that we were sending to training? So who was the single most important person, and when did that take place? Was it before, during, or after? The results of the survey were very interesting. The results showed that the number 1 most important stakeholder in training was the supervisor before the training took place. Number 2 was the trainer, and then number 3 was the supervisor after the training had taken place. I was really shocked at these numbers. I don't know how you guys are kind of feeling about this, but I certainly welcome your comments in the discussion area. More, what I was shocked about was the trainees ranking of 7, 5, and 6. This is the person who's taking the training, and yet it was viewed as the trainer was more important in one area, two areas, and then the supervisor being more important in the before and after phase of what was going on. So what that really got us thinking about was what really happens when it comes to sending someone to training. And so we look at what are our training inputs, we look at what are our training outputs, and then we look at, well, what is in essence, the conditions of the transfer. So how do we take it from learning to actual application? How do we take it into behavior change? How do we take it into change and results of what we're seeing? So we looked at the training inputs. We looked at the trainee characteristics. So who is this person that we're sending to training? Are they someone who's really resistant to training? Are they open to training? Do they want to learn? Do they not like change? There's a whole lot of things that go on with this. We look at the training design. So what does that training design look like? And then we look at the work environment. And notice where all the arrows are going here and how the first three on the left, the inputs, directly affect the output of the training that is happening. And then notice also that the conditions of the transfer are going to be affected by, once again, the trainee characteristics and also by the work environment. So let's say that you send me to training and I learn whatever it is that you were hoping that I would learn. But when I get back to my work environment, there's really no opportunity for me to apply what I've learned. How many times have we sent someone to training, and this is a rhetorical question for myself and many others, where we've sent them, they've learned a lot, and then 2 days later they get back from training and it's just the same old, same old. Well, unfortunately, that transfer of the training, of the learning, is now lost. And so this hopefully gives you an idea of what we're looking at here in the flow. And really, I can't say enough about the importance of the supervisor. There's a quote from Burke and Hutchins talking about just how important the role of those who supervise is in helping us to get the results we're looking for. So this is not theory, this is proven. This has been studied and studied and studied, and it shows that the role of the supervisor is so important in influencing and supporting and getting the results that we're looking at. So that's why you need to be involved. And that's why we need to look at just exactly how we view training. So how do you view training? Well, many people view training like this slide. The training starts when we go in the room, and the training finishes when we leave the room. Right? Well, hopefully you don't see it that way. I can tell you, though, that we have many, many organizations that see the finish line is when our trainee walks out the door. And in my mind, and in the mind of many others, we're really focusing on the wrong finish line. So where is our focus when it comes to what's going on with the training, and where is the focus when we look at our finish line? So I want to take you into a really wonderful book. Well, actually, the Kirkpatricks have done quite a few books on the evaluation of training. And let me tell you a little bit about what they call the 4 levels. They say that the 4 levels of training are, first of all, reaction. So you take a training class and you receive your evaluation and it says, well, what did you think of the training? Did you find the information to be valuable? What did you think of the trainer today? Okay, those are all level 1 types of evaluation. Those are really asking us our reaction about what occurred, what happened to us while we were in the training. I see a lot of evaluations that we do that are really level 1 evaluation. They're nice. Oh, I'm sorry, but so what? So you had a good time. Woohoo! Level 2 gets into asking questions about what did you learn? What did you learn? In PCI webinars, and certainly some of the ones that I do, I like to ask you, what's one thing that you learned today that you believe that you can apply? So that question is actually a level 2 and a level 3, because behavior change or application of the material are questions that we would ask in level 3. Now, usually long after the training is done, we start to get into results. And so certainly please measurable results. So you sent Andrew to customer service training because you wanted him to learn how to deal with angry patrons. Andrew learned techniques. He has been using those techniques to not take things personally. He's been using those things to stay calm. He's been using the techniques to engage the patron, listen to the patron, do the different things that we want Andrew to do. So we're seeing behavior change. That's level 3. What are the results of the interactions with the patron? See, the hard part of level 4 is that these are harder to measure. And please don't tell me that your measurements are just going to be on that we're getting less complaints about Andrew. Well, but that's probably a good thing. However, that's not the only result that we're looking for. Can I get a just an okay that you're following me here on the 4 levels over in the discussion area? Does this make sense to you guys? Do you understand these different levels? And yes, good. Okay, good, because this is really helpful where I want to take you next. What I want you to tell me over in the discussion area is the last training that you attended, where did it land for you? Was it a type of, oh, I had a good time, so that was a reaction? Was it, well, I learned something, but maybe you really haven't applied it? Was there actual behavior change in what's going on since you took that training? And I don't really know that you would get to level 4, depending how long ago that training was, but results was where you've seen measurable change in the results based on the training that you took. All right, so some interesting thoughts here. So we have a learning, we have a reaction learning, we have probably learning, we haven't had a chance to apply it yet. Similar comment, learning, no chance to apply the behavior yet. Learning and behavior, level 2. Learning, a lot of learning going on. Well, the Kirkpatricks will tell you that learning is a part of what they call the scrap. So anything below the behavior line is truly learning scrap, training scrap, because it never got past the point of where you learned it. Now, a lot of people like the saying that knowledge is power. I don't. I think it's actually a pretty terrible saying, because knowledge is not power. If you tell me applied knowledge is power, okay, I'm listening. If you tell me applied knowledge that got me this result was power, now I'm really listening. But we could take this training today and we could say, yeah, Andrew, I learned a lot today. Thanks very much. Well, what's next? How are you going to apply? And let's go back to you in the role of supervising people. How are you going to get them out of the learning scrap? How are you going to get them into where we see behavior change? We see application of what we learned. And our goal, of course, is to get up that pyramid to where we actually see tangible, measurable results. Now, that can take months to get to. I don't want you to think that this is, this real quick process that we're going to, just miraculously, it's going to happen tomorrow. It's not. So I have a question for you. And I'll be interested just to see what your answer is. What do you think leads to what we call learning scrap? What do you think leads to learning scrap? So in other words, the training that we're investing in, whether it's for ourselves, whether it's for our people, why do you think we don't get up to the behavior and results area? So think about that. I'd love to see some of your answers over in the discussion area. What's leading to the learning scrap, in essence? All right, let's see what we got. All right, maybe our training is not specific enough. Could be. Too much information at once. Been there, yes, I get that one. Because we've never really applied what we've learned. Could be, right? We just say, oh, do this. Okay, take this class. One of my favorites is in states where you're required to do so many hours of CE a year. Well, yeah, I did my 8 hours. And Anita says follow through. Let's see. Some people do not want to make the change. Absolutely. Sometimes too much of one time of the training. It may be too general, not enough specifics. Good. And then the power to change behavior may have to come from above if you're not allowed to waive fees, for example, but good customer service training says it's okay. Well, which one do you go with? Well, I know what I'm going with. It would be from above. Especially if I've already been, yelled at a few times about not following what above told me. So yeah. So, and that goes back to, remember the previous slide a little ways back where I talked with you about the grid on what would be some of the things that would prevent this behavior back to here. So remember, work environment up to the generalization and the maintenance of what we learned, that could block it totally. So yes, so I think you guys are right on point. And I see one more person typing in, and we can get to that in a second as well. But I really want you to think about in this section with how do you guys currently view the finish line? And are we truly just setting up these training opportunities just to provide us with more what the Kirkpatricks would call learning scrap? I hope not, but I also understand some of the realism of what might be going on. Okay, so need time to practice. Maybe it is tech training, and maybe we're not giving people the time that they need to get things done. So training is a process, right? And we looked at what happens before training. We looked at what happens during training, and we look at, well, this is what happened after Andrew got done with training. And yeah, well, that's great. But the finish line here is really where I want to make sure that you are focused. The finish line is not after training. The finish line is, are we seeing change of behavior to the point where we actually can get some type of measurable, quantifiable result in what goes on? Okay, that to me is the real finish line, and I think it's the finish line that all of our organizations need to be looking at. A quote here from Broad and Newstrom again. Because to me, transferring the training means they're taking the knowledge, they're taking the skills, they're taking the aptitude, they're taking the different things that have been taught, and now we're looking at how do we put it into play. And that's where I want to take you guys next. So what is it that you can do to make the training stick? Well, first of all, let's throw out the silver bullet theory and get that out of the way. There are some situations that training is not the answer. It's not, I'm sorry. As someone who worked in training departments for years and still does training to this day, training may not be the answer. And this is one of the questions that I think we need to ask when we see a gap, when we have decided that there is a need to address a situation. Training isn't always going to be the silver bullet here. And so we need to really analyze and look at if indeed that truly is what's going on. So I've got this flow chart for you here. And we'll start off on the left-hand side. It talks about our desired results that we're looking for, and then we look at the actual results that we're getting. So, and then we're looking at the desired behaviors, and then we're looking at the actual behaviors and what's going on. Now, you could do a gap analysis. You could look at a department. You could look at the entire organization. It also just may be an individual that you're looking at and deciding that there's a gap in what's going on. Just give me a yes or no if you've done a gap analysis before in your work life. Shoot, I've done them at home. But have you ever done a gap analysis before? Okay, a lot of no's here. I would recommend that you look at, and if you're with me, you can type this in for the folks. It's the Mind Tools, M-I-N-D, mindtools.com website. I love their explanation of a gap analysis, and I love how they actually give you a couple of different ways that you can use it. So mindtools.com would be a great tool for you guys to learn about a gap analysis. I really do believe there are a lot of applications for it. So we've decided where we are with results. We've decided with where we are with behaviors. Thanks, Ann. I don't believe Mind Tools is in the handouts, so that's something you may want to add to that. So we run our gap analysis. We now have an idea of really what's going on. So our next step is intervention. In essence, what are we going to do? So is it something that we need to redesign how the position, how the process is done, how the work is done? Is it truly a training type of fix? Is this something that culturally needs to change? Maybe there's some other solutions out there that you're looking at. Once you make a decision on what the intervention is, then you're going to look at your implementation. And from implementation, then you look at, well, has behavior changed? Has results changed? Okay? And so in the evaluation process, you're going to determine if your intervention has worked. Maybe you thought training was the answer, and training wasn't the answer. When I was working with a corporate structure known as Continental Airlines, which no longer exists, as a training manager, I would be really unhappy when a supervisor would want to send someone to me for the third time to get the training. My question was, is this really a training problem? Because whenever I have an employee that's not doing the work, I ask myself a couple of questions. One of them is, can they do the work? Is this something that they are capable of doing? Because sometimes we ask people to do something that they just can't do. So if it's a can't do, all the training in the world isn't going to help. But if you tell me that they are capable of doing it, and that we have had them go through the training, and maybe we've had them go through the training a couple of times, I'm led to believe that training is not the answer. I'm led to believe that the supervisor may need to be doing more with this employee. And then, there are also employees out there that it's not that they can't do it. It's not that they don't know how to do it. It's that they just won't do it. Well, if I have a won't do, then that's a whole other class, number one, but it's also a whole other problem. Won't do is a disciplinary process in my mind and what's happening. But this is your flow chart here. So if you've identified results that you aren't getting and you've identified behaviors that need to happen, you're already starting a gap analysis. And then you're going to decide where you're going to go from there. So I want you to look at this case study and go ahead and read it. I'm going to give you a minute to do so. And I want you to tell me if you believe in the discussion area, is this a situation where training would be the solution for this employee? So I'll check back in with you as we're getting answers in the discussion area. Is training the solution here? I see some of your answers coming in. We've got no, I would check in with her and see if she's feeling overwhelmed. Another suggestion is maybe some intervention may be needed, coaching. Let's see, she's already aware of good customer service. The issue is not a lack of knowledge. Good. More training will not help here. They need to look at her new schedule and see if it's realistic. Another no, because I think it's an inner issue, scheduling issue, not in need of training. Okay, you guys are pretty consistent here. Discussing matters with her, listening to her are the first areas to begin with. Good. And that's what I wanted you guys to look at here. So what we're doing is we are looking at a situation where we're not getting results. We're looking at a situation where behavior is not the behavior we want. So one of our questions to ask ourselves is training the solution? And here you guys clearly say no, and I would agree with you. I would want to have a conversation with this employee and find out what's going on. Is she really overwhelmed? Or is it that she's been put out on the desk and she's not able to do the work in the back room where maybe she's more comfortable? Or maybe she didn't like change, or maybe it's forced change. The beauty of case studies is we're really only guessing, and this is true with you, with your employees as well. Until you can actually sit down and talk with them and just have a what's going on conversation, and here's what I've observed, we're kind of guessing and what's happening here. Part of that conversation could be, what are the results that we're hoping to see from this employee? We could talk with them about the behaviors that we want, the behaviors that we need from them. These questions can help us to figure out exactly where the problem is. So will new knowledge, skills, or attitude fill the gap? You guys have already said no, this is not a knowledge issue. This is not a skills issue. The employee has already demonstrated they have those skills. So is it an attitude issue? Could be. Could be. These are the questions we ask to help us to really figure out where we're going. Our goal, once again, is to get up the pyramid, get up to behavior change, get up to the results in what we're doing. So band-aiding a situation or just trying to fix the symptoms, I don't think is quite the answer of where we're going. So when we look at training, and once again, I want to look at how do we get up the scale here? How do we get past reaction? How do we get past learning? How do we move beyond learning? I believe that this really falls on us if we are supervising others and for our own good, if we are really just looking at our own development and what we do. So 3 key topics that I would look at when it comes to training my staff members are, first of all, what is it that they've learned? Well, we sent them to the training, and the training was about this. Well, okay, then let's have a conversation about what did you learn? And then how are they going to apply it on the job, and how you can support them in the application of the material. This is the conversation that I want you guys to have with your folks. The first question has to do with what they learned. Okay, so they tell you what they've learned. Then the next question has to do with, okay, well, how are you going to apply it now? Well, Andrew, I'm going to do this and this and this. Okay, great. And then, hopefully down the line, we'll get into that very high level with where we actually see measurable results. One of the handouts that I've given to you is called a Training Objective and Ideas Application Worksheet. And Terry and I decided that we were going to name it Bob. Do you like that? Bob. And I guess we like that because Toyowa, I guess, wasn't a good name. So Bob. So I'm introducing you to Bob. If you've not downloaded Bob, please download Bob. This is the sheet, the worksheet that you will use in having your discussion with the employee. And it hits those 3 questions that we just covered. So what did they learn in the training? How do they want to apply it on the job? And what support do they need from you in the process? Here's the tool you were looking for. So I hope you're going to run with this, and I'm going to hope you're going to use it. But let's talk about support before the training. Because you set the stage on effectiveness of the training for the person that is working for you is your direct report, however you see that relationship. So first of all, if you are of the attitude or you are of the impression that the training really isn't that important, it's just a waste of time and money, well, guess what? That's how your employee is going to see it when they walk into the training room. If you don't see it as important, they aren't going to see it as important. So first thing you need to do is set the stage. So here's how you can help. So we have our Bob sheet, right? Everybody's got Bob. Well, now what you're going to do is you're going to give Bob a rope. And a rope stands for relevance, it stands for objectives, it stands for preparing the trainee, and it stands for expectations. So the support that you're going to give the employee before they take the training is you're going to have a discussion with them about, first of all, why they're going. By the way, have you guys ever seen the Simon Sinek video having to do with getting to why? Just give me a yes or a no over in the discussion area. Getting to why. I don't think that's the correct title, but it will get you the TED Talk by looking at it. And what Simon Sinek says is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And it's brilliant. It is just absolutely brilliant. Quite frankly, what I'm going to is not nearly as important as why I'm going to it. So please take a moment to look at that video. That is not on the resource list again. These are things that just come to me when I'm doing the program with you. So have this conversation. Why it's relevant to them. Why it's relevant to the organization. What are the objectives of the training? What is it that they need so that they are prepared when they walk into this training? And what are your expectations? You know, I love it when you guys send me to training and you say, you know what, Andrew, you're going to ALA this year. And so what we want you to do is come back and we want you to teach us a few of the things that you learned at ALA. Love that. So you've got Bob, you've given Bob a rope. And that rope is the support that you're going to give them before training. After training, here's the quote from Broad and Newstrom. You guys have powerful influence in taking the training from the finish line that many people perceive it to be to the new finish line that we talked about earlier. Mary, I think it's called Getting to Why. But maybe I can have Ann look it up. It's Simon Sinek, Simonsinek. And it's a talk on leadership, and it's just a wonderful thing that he does on people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it and what's happening. So what's the support that you're going to give after training? Well, I've given you yet another exciting name. So you've got Bob and you've got a rope, and that rope is going to take you all the way over to Nora. Thank you, Tracy. It's called How Great Leaders Inspire Action. Tracy gets the high five award through the computer screen. So after the training, we're going to have another conversation. We're going to say, what did you learn? Okay, now what are the next steps? What do you believe are the obstacles into applying what you've learned? You guys earlier talked about it could be environmental. Okay, well, we need to think about those obstacles. What resources does the employee need so that they can go out and apply these things that they've learned? And then where's the accountability? Well, the accountability can be your Bob sheet. I hope you see that. So we filled out the Bob sheet and we set up an accountability meeting, which would be, and let's say in a week that we get together and we talk about how you're doing. So what obstacles are you seeing? What resources do you need from me? The support is not one meeting. There's going to be multiple meetings as we go down the line. Maybe they're finding that what they thought they could apply is something that's not working for them. Okay, well, great. Maybe it's time to design some other next steps. So Bob has a rope, and that rope is going to Nora. I know it's corny, and I know it sounds stupid, but you know what? These are the things people remember. Instead of training objectives and idea workshop application, really? Okay. So think about Bob and rope and Nora as you're going through. The other handout that I gave you down in the downloads area that I hope you will certainly take a look at has to do with what we call the stakeholder matrix. And this is for the supervisor here. It's 2 pages. On page 1, we talk about what are the actions that as a supervisor that I want to take before the training. What do I want to do during the training? What do I want to do after the training? What are the possible barriers that I see in the application of what's going on? And what are the countermeasures that I want to put in place to address some of those things? And so you make your list of those there's 5 different columns there. So the actions that you're going to take before training, and we put in some of the things that we wanted to share in that area. And this is actually an example from Terry and his training that he was doing. And then page 2 of the matrix is what you look at as the training has been going on. So we took these actions before the training, but did they really work? These are questions we can ask ourselves. But mainly you're taking those 5 areas, you're putting them into the 5 columns to address the different things that are being asked. I'm a big believer. The sheet talks about possible barriers and countermeasures. I'm a big believer that we have to have a resistance plan. And the resistance plan is where we identify where we believe the resistance is going to be to application, behavior change, and the result change we're looking for. And then already having a good idea of how we're going to handle those things. So if we know that Brian is resistant to doing things differently because he's been here 27 years, then you know what? You better have a plan for resisting Brian. Sorry to pick on you, Brian. Look at the question we're looking at here. Not did we learn something, not was the behavior changed, but the down the line is going to be, did we see results? And have the results improved from where we were before on our matrix? So you know what? Maybe training really was the answer this time. So follow the flowchart again. So you looked at your desired results. You looked at your actual results. You looked at what were the behaviors you wanted. You looked at the behaviors that you're now seeing. You looked at the intervention and what you decided to do. Your intervention, you decided, was training. You went out, you implemented that training. You're now evaluating it based on the results and the behaviors that you see. Quite possibly, you may have made a decision that the results could be better. And so maybe you are now changing the desired behaviors and the desired results based on what you have right now. This, to me, by the way, is called continuous improvement. And to me, I think that's gold. We should be doing continuous improvement, always. I'm in the mindset that whatever process that we have at PCI Webinars, it can be better. Not because it's bad, not because it's terrible, but because technology changes, my staff changes, the needs of our clients change. So how do we improve? We meet, we talk every year about the things that we do. We look at ways of how do we make it better? How do we make it more efficient? How do we minimize waste? All right, so getting started with the transfer of training. I've walked you through your role here and why it's important what you think, why it's important what you do, why it's important of how you frame things before the training even takes place. what your goals are with the training, what you're going to do after the training is done to support the employee. So would you take a moment and over in the discussion area, I want you to write down what are the obstacles that you see in taking your training out of level 2 and out of level 3. What are the obstacles that you see? Just go ahead and take a moment and go ahead and type those in. Because it all sounds good in a webinar, right? But what are the obstacles? And like I said, I'll give you a little bit to type those in. Okay, some of the answers that are coming in include time, prioritization, forgetting to follow up, helping supervisors to fulfill this role, good, staff buy-in and supervision support on follow-through with the training points would be major ones. Practical application, Diane says, I'm sorry. Maybe the number of things in the training need to be broken down into 2 separate ones. Staff not wanting to use tools given to the, yeah, what if they don't want to use them? All right, so take your obstacles, and now I want you to think about them. And in the discussion area, I want you to write down what your countermeasure would be to your obstacle. If you tell me time is your obstacle, I'm going to tell you that we find time for the things that are most important to us. What do you think about that? Correct. Make time for it. When someone says, I didn't have time, well, I didn't have time to do that, Andrew. My thought is, well, it wasn't important enough. You had other things that you decided were more important. That's not judgmental. That's not saying good or bad. That's just telling me that this task, for whatever reason, was not important enough to get done. So what I would much rather people say to me instead of, I didn't have time, I would love it if people would say, I didn't make time to do it. There's a responsibility in that I like too. I didn't make the time to do it. Oh, another comment came in, low staffing. I get called upon to keep the building open and can't do the higher level work. Maybe that is realistic right now. And maybe wanting to put in something like this into place will require you to do more delegating where the responsibility for follow-up is more on the trainee than on you as the supervisor or manager. All right, so some of our countermeasures: schedule follow-up meetings and prioritize. Check the results after half of the training when they don't have so much to remember. Analyze priorities and the supervisor support. Show, what is that? Managaggle application, small chunks, good. Oh, it is manageable. Okay, I thought Managaggle might have been an app. Who knows what the names that are out there. Maybe try one new thing at a time. Maybe your first step is just to introduce Bob to people. You know, Terry and I have gift wrapped that for you. There's Bob. So try out Bob as a new thing. And with Bob, you give them the sheet, you talk with them about it. This is what you say you learned. That's great. This is what you say how you want to apply it on the job. And how would you like me to support you? And then you have a follow-up meeting with them. Okay, you've started to change the culture by just taking those steps. People start to understand training doesn't end when they left the training class then. In my mind, that's huge. In my mind, I can't give you a number, but I know more than 50% of the organizations out there don't do it. Because they don't have time, because they don't have these different things, or maybe just because they've not realized that they're looking at the wrong finish line. I'm not sure. So let me ask you this. If you were to start doing some of these things, what would be in it for you? What would be in it for your staff? And what would be in it for your organization? So take a minute and think about that and tell us in the discussion area what would be in it for one or all of those that are there. I'm really interested to see your answers here, because if you can define benefit, then you define motivation. So what's in it for you? What's in it for your staff? What's in it for your organization? So think about those and let's see what you get. Okay, some of the answers coming in. Better workflow and efficiency, happier customers, communication and support would improve, less stress when we all know what we're doing, capacity, happier workers, direct correlation to happy customers, more confident staff, when they know what tools they have to help people, they can do it better. Ooh, workers that won't make so many mistakes. The journey of increasing skill, yes. I would also go with continuous improvement, same thing. Consistency helps staff and patrons equaling less issues, good. I think confident staff, yeah, and better customer service. Okay, so I hope you see what I did with you in this last section. I asked you, what's the obstacles? You listed them. I asked you, what are countermeasures? You started to list some of those. If we can get the obstacles and the countermeasures out of the way, then we've already taken first steps. If we can then identify what's in it, man, then we've got the driver. The driver is benefit. And that's where the emotion and the other fuel comes in for us to do it. So now I kind of put the ball in your court here. You've seen the process. You have different tools that you can utilize now. Can you take the steps? Despite all of the different obstacles that you have listed there. That will be your challenge as we move forward. Go ahead and put any questions you have over in the discussion area. I'm happy to take a look at what you got. I like that last quote. Hope is not a method. Okay, I hope they learn. I hope they'll do it. I'm trying to remember my dad's quote. I think he used to say, if you have hope in one hand and poop in the other, you'll always have more poop. Pretty sure that was the correct thing that my father said. So how are you incorporating learning transfer? Hope will not do it. Please share, and with your questions, what's one real takeaway that you had from the program today? And then take it one step further for me. What is this takeaway that you had, this thing that you learned that you believe that you can apply? So take a minute and think about that, and then go ahead and type that in the discussion area. So one thing that you learned today that you want to apply. And by the way, thank you for that feedback, because that really helps me in developing these programs that I do. All right, training is continuous. I keep forgetting to check in with staff on a regular basis, okay? After training, what did you learn? How can I support you? How are you going to apply it would be the other question there. Supervisors have an important role in trainees. Boy, do they. If that's your takeaway, then this was a good program because I really wanted that message to get across today. Oh, I'm so glad that you liked Bob and Rope and Nora. They're corny, but they are useful. And the beginning with why, starting with why video, please take a look at that. Support before the training. So you've got rope. Ooh, not everything requires training. That's also another incredibly good takeaway. Because I think for some reason we try to fit everything into this, it needs training, it needs training. And a lot of times it doesn't need training. What it needs is us to really analyze it and look at what's the remedy. Follow-up staff training and time is not an excuse. No, it's not an excuse, but you know what? Time is real. There's a lot of expectations that are on us. How can we just move this up in the chain of importance and what's going on? Training is an ongoing endeavor, but training is not always necessary. Training isn't always the solution. Don't take training you don't plan to value or want results from. Nice. That's kind of like wasting time. Isn't that interesting? Wasting time, and a lot of our commenting here in one of the strings had to do with we don't have enough time. And what goes on when training fails. First, look at whether a person is capable of doing the work. That's another really good one too. Maybe they just can't do it, and maybe that we're just really wasting everyone's time if that's the case. And I'll let you jump in. I've got the last slide up, and certainly any more. If you do have questions, please put them in the discussion area. Happy to talk with you about those.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Great job. Lots of nice new ideas there. Anybody have any final questions for Andrew? You've all been very good about participating throughout. Question, Andrew, what does Bob stand for? That's funny.
Yeah, Bob doesn't stand for anything, but it's something we came up with because training objectives and idea application worksheet wasn't all that pretty. So we just called it Bob, and then we gave Bob a rope, and then that rope got over to Nora, and that's kind of all happened, and it's supposed to be just corny enough that you remember it.
Good question, though. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, Andrew, for an excellent presentation, and thank you all for coming and for participating so well. We really love to see that, and we hope to see you again soon at another PCI webinar. Have a great afternoon, everybody.